on the couch. I'll apologise for Jonathan Brown having you in the bottom six. We've voted for you the last 3 weeks. Right. Sydney Swans, they looked on the ropes when Teddy Richards was KO'd. I thought that the Power were going to find a way to charge away, and it wasn't to be. It was a Sydney Swans that had a bit of a different look about it, clearly with two big boys. The Bondi Billionaires not there, but the run was back for Sydney. Yeah, although having said that, I would say Sydney was there to be beaten, and Port weren't good enough to do it, because they had a couple of big players out. They had a couple of players injured during the game, and they still found a way to hold Port off, which is credit to Sydney, but very disappointing from a Port Adelaide perspective.
And Sydney, it was Sydney of old. As soon as those players went down with injury, they were man short on the bench. They kicked the next 4 or 5 goals. It was on the back of their leaders once again, the midfield, Kennedy, Jack, Parker, Hanbury. They were fantastic.
Do you think the forward line mix will change, though, given that the Swans have been successful without being as predictable as they have been?
What are we going to leave Franklin and Tippett on the sidelines?
No, I wouldn't be doing that, but I think I'd be mixing it up. I liked the look of Luke Parker there. It was good to see Goods. Sam Reid obviously benefited from being the target up forward, and you can see the percentages that changed over the weekend. Clearly Gary Rowan, they're still trying to find a spot for him. He played there for 100% of the time, up 17%. Unbelievably, and he's just getting his best form. He does a hamstring.
There's no difference in Dean Towers, because that's the same percentage that he played forward previous to that. But half of those players won't be there when Franklin and Tippett come back.
I think it's important, though, they all get a crack at being one out in the goal square. And we saw Tippett only was there for a few minutes a couple of weeks ago against Richmond. But we know Franklin spends a lot of time. We want to see him pushing in the midfield. Good to see Goods there. I think Sam Reid should be given the opportunity to have the forward line to himself for periods of a game.
One of the big talking points coming out of the weekend, though, is the Jay Schultz tackle. There's a lot of anger out there in the sporting world, the Twitter world and the talkback world, because this tackle was allowed to go free, and it came on the back of Bryce Gibbs' tackle that got 3 down to 2.
Well, they're all on... they're saying here that there was 2 movements with the Gibbs one, and obviously this one they're saying there wasn't 2 movements. They're virtually the same. They're both using the momentum to get the player to the ground, and they're both being knocked out, so... I'm not sure.
I'm confused. They're saying that one was dangerous and excessive, the Gibbs tackle, and yet with Jay Schultz they're saying it wasn't excessive and it wasn't dangerous. I don't know how you can draw a fine line.
One was rougher than the other. How do you draw a line?
I think if you look at them closely, they both have... It's almost a dance step. There's 2 skips. And I thought when I first saw that it was probably more one motion, but if you look at it closely, there is 2 motions, there is 4 steps. Of course there is. But nevertheless, I mean, the objective is, whether it's 2 steps, 2 movements or not, we've got to get this out of the game. The sling tackle has to be like the bump. If you sling tackle, you are responsible.
Hang on a minute, Gerard. There was countless examples of this over the weekend where players have that slinging motion where they use the momentum of the player to get him to ground, and the player gets up. No, so you're saying we've got to outlaw all of that? So we've got to virtually outlaw tackling to the ground.
No, that's rubbish.
And players are getting better and better, and they're well drilled at training. We used to practice it all the time line. It's standing up in a tackle. So it's not as simple as just dropping your weight as a tackler and the player falls over. Players are really strong in that standing position. You need to use a lot of force to get them down.
No, I don't think you have to use that sort of slinging force, and I think you do. And you showed the example last week where there was another tackle up in Sydney, and the tackler just minimised the force, and they could have pinged him on excessive force. And that's what they should have made sure they got consistency in this rule. And bear in mind, they will address this over the summer period. They'll get it right. You can't have blokes getting KO'd when they're in a defenceless situation like that.
I can understand why Bryce Gibbs is confused, that's for sure. But what did you make of Manny Broadbent? Now, this I found this to be ordinary. This is something we need to stamp out of the game. When a player is struggling to get to his feet because he's been injured, you don't come over and just try and get into them physically. I mean, it's not tough. It doesn't serve any purpose. Now, he's been fined for that. I'm glad he's been fined. And I think players need to get it in their heads. If a player's injured, stay out of his way. Don't get involved. I mean, that's just ridiculous.
There's no need for it in a game. Different if a player goes out, say he's broken his rib the week before and then he goes out and plays.
No, that's fine. That's
fair
fine.
Game. Fair game, you hit him up. But when a player's been injured in the game, stay away from him.
Port's got to get some more out of Paddy Ryder. At the moment, he's playing more